Hi class, so this is an extra lab that we're going to be doing, and I included it because I think it's really helpful to teach you how to use the Liquify tool. So it's actually from a really old Photoshop textbook that I have, but I've included the files for you. So you should have this head tilted JPEG, the jump puppet PSD, and the jumper JPEG. So we're going to look at all of those. The first tool that we're going to look at more in depth is the Liquify tool. So you're going to go up to Filter and Liquify, and that's going to bring up this new dialog box in which you can use the Liquify tool. So the first step in here is going to be using the warp tool. So that's this forward warp tool. And you're going to stretch or squish details in an image by dragging them. This is definitely the most useful tool that you're going to find in the Liquify dialog box. But we're going to zoom in to about 100%. And then your brush is going to be nice and big. So you actually want your brush to be about 750 pixels. So we're going to go way up there. Somewhere between 700 and 800 is fine. So we're going to go ahead and drag each elbow upward. So think about it as your mouse is in the center of this big circle. Okay, so if you center this circle on her elbow, we're going to kind of drag her elbow up a little bit. Hang on just a second here. Okay, let's try that again. And you really want to use tiny, small movements. You don't want to make large movements at all. So each elbow is going to be moved upwards. And that's going to help out her posture. Oh, that's what I don't want. Okay, so see this show backdrop box? I'm gonna uncheck that. Okay, there, now it's looking better. I was seeing a double image. Okay, so we want to kind of like just gently move up her elbows until they look more even, because she obviously has a side posture going on there. So we want to kind of make her elbows match. Now we're going to decrease the brush size to about 375. So you got to scroll back up here. Or 400 is good. And you're going to pull her thighs and her hips upward and inward, making your strokes very short. And he only used 3 strokes on the left side and 4 on the right. So take care with this. Like, you don't want to make her look unnatural, but you're just trying to help her posture out a little bit here. Okay, so like that, because she's sitting on a stool, which is not always the most flattering. Also, keep in mind you want the lines on her pants to continue to be straight. Okay, so you can kind of adjust her hips like that. Okay, now we're going to drag in her arms because they're looking a bit too wide. So you're going to decrease your brush size again to about 150 this time. And just kind of drag her arms a little bit in. again, not the most flattering of positions for photos. So also he says in the instructions you can pull her sleeves down her arm a little bit, and that might help the perspective. Okay, so you're gonna do that, then you're gonna switch to the pucker tool, which is S. This is great for areas that need to be constricted. And the arm on the right side is looking a little bumpy to squish it when you from where you squished it inward. I don't know if yours does, but the pucker tool, we want to take it down to about 50 pixels. So in any tool in Photoshop, you can click at the top of a line. So I'm going to click at the top of where her sleeve meets her arm once. And then I'm going to go down here to the about her elbow and shift click, and you'll notice it's going to straighten that line out for us. So anytime you hold down shift with like the brush tool or the pen tool or any of those, you are going to get a straight line effect, so that's helpful. Okay, let's go ahead and increase our brush size to about 350, 400, somewhere in there. You're going to use the pucker tool on her midsection as well. Just to tuck it in a little. And then we're actually going to apply a freeze mask. So there's a tool over here, freeze mask tool and thaw mask tool. So you're going to paint the freeze mask tool, and you're going to basically block out the whole bottom part of the image from being moved. So the Liquify tool will only affect what's not blocked out. And you can see in your book, or sorry, in the instructions, kind of where it goes. It's sort of a line about like that we're gonna freeze from moving at all. So the next thing we're gonna try and do is actually tilt her head to where it looks straighter. So you use the freeze mask so it doesn't affect any of these pixels down here. And then we're going to use the twirl clockwise tool to actually twirl her head. Sort of interesting. So we're going to put our brush size way high, up to the maximum. Actually, that's not the maximum. He says 1500 pixels. So that's fine. And then you're going to place the cursor, which is in the center of your circle, at the base of her neck, which will become the fulcrum of the rotation. And then you click about 10 times to rotate her neck almost upright. Okay, so let's just try it. It's not going to be ideal, but we're going to try it. Okay, so if I go all the way upright, you guys can see what's happening here. This is not the effect that we want. So you can see that it's kind of warped her face and stuff. So I'm going to go back a few rotations to where she still looks a bit normal. I think I've got an issue with the shoulder here. So I'm gonna go back to before I even used the twirl tool. And I'm going to mask out this shoulder a little bit more, all the way over to her collar. Because what happened was I lost the shoulder basically there. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side too with the shoulder. I'm gonna raise it up a little bit higher. So the main thing that you want to watch is where the shoulder positioning is on those, on the freeze mask. So let's try that again. I'm gonna go back to my twirl tool and I'm gonna twirl it a bit more this time. Okay, so now we're gonna turn off our freeze mask. And I'm just gonna brush back over it. Looks like I have a little glitch down here. Okay, so for this one, you're gonna be using the reconstruct tool. Which is the second one down. And you can actually use this after you've done some damage. So we're going to set the brush to about 50 pixels. And then we're going to click on this shoulder area. And it's going to attempt to reconstruct those pixels as they were before. Got to do some over here on the collar too. Okay, and then I got to do a little bit on her hair because it's looking a bit funny. Okay, so that's looking a little better. If you're working on something like this, it's gonna take a while, and you're gonna have to use sort of like micro movements. There's also this option to save the mesh. So you can think of the Liquify tool as like a mesh over your image, and what you're doing is you're modifying that mesh. And so you can save the mesh as a MSH file to go back and work on it later if you want to. You can also load a mesh, which they do give us a mesh file that we can use. So I'm going to navigate back to this folder that we're in, and it's called headupright.msh, and you're going to open that. And what that's going to do is it's going to load the mesh that the author was using so that you can start with the same exact adjustments that he had after adjusting her neck. So he made some further adjustments to her face and her neck, and he also used the pucker tool on her ankles and extended her pants down on her knees with the forward warp tool. These are all like transformations that are definitely a matter of taste, but just keep in mind that like this is what he was able to come up with. And to me, for my taste, I think her eyes look a bit funny, so I would work more on her eyes. Like, I feel like he made them the wrong perspective a little bit. So I would probably go in here and like, no, that's too much. Like you have to make really small clicks. But anyways, you would probably want to modify this even more, but that's the example that he came up with. So now we're going to move on to the puppet warp image that says jump puppet. And this one is actually a PSD, so it has the text on a different layer than the person and the sky and the grass. So the first thing we're going to need to do is move him to his own layer. So the way that you would go about doing that is click on the channels tab. And I'm still in art mode over here, so I'm going to go back to essentials. And then I'm going to click on channels. So when you look at the channels, you're going to see one called mask. And so the author's gone in and like actually created a selection. But you're going to control click or command click on the mask channel to load it as a selection. And then you're going to press Control Alt J, or you're going to press on the Mac command Option J. And what that's going to do is it's a shortcut to create a new layer from the selection that's already there. So you can click OK on that. And you'll see that it's put him on his own layer. So that's really helpful to get a subject on its own layer. Then you're going to go ahead and go back to the channels panel and control click or command click on the mask again to create another selection. And then you're going to go up to the select menu, modify and expand. And what that does is it takes your selection and expands it out by however many pixels. So you have kind of like some wiggle room around your selection. So you can see how that changed there. And you want to make sure this time that you are on the sky and grass layer. And you can go out and turn off the other two layers if you want. So you're on the sky and grass layer, and then you're going to go Edit, Fill, and you're going to go Content Aware. So what that does is it's going to fill him on this layer with sky. So it'll get rid of him on that particular layer. And then he'll just be on the new layer that we created. So once you've done that, you can do Command D, Control D, or Command D to deselect. If you see any weird halo effects, you can get those cleaned up with the healing brush. Okay, now you want to go ahead and convert the text. You can turn all your layers back on. We're going to convert the text to sorry. So we're going to go to the layer of the man, and we're going to create a smart object. So we're going to right click on his layer, convert to smart object, and then we're going to go up to edit and puppet warp. So what this does is it overlays like a mesh on him, and you're going to put little push pins where his joints are, and then you're going to actually stretch him out. So first thing you want to do is put 2 pins on the left arm. So you're going to put one at his elbow, and then also his shoulder. Then you're going to drag the outer pin at the elbow and stretch it out. So you can see kind of the effect that you get if you do this. Just as an example. You can also rotate around a pin. So if you want to rotate your object around one of those pins, you can also do that. Now we're going to set additional pins along each limb and down the center of the figure starting at his head. So you can see figure 828 in the PDF I gave you. You're basically putting a pin on each joint except like the hands and the ankles, really. And then he has a couple pins on his hips, legs, and knees. So now that is going to be all the pins that you have. Now we're going to kind of make this like cartoonish in a way. So we're going to look at the selected pin has a blue dot in the middle. You can also move 2 or more pins at the same time if you shift click on more than one pin. And then you can press and hold the Alt or Option key and that will delete the pin. If you hold down the Alt key in the vicinity of a pin, you'll see a rotation indicator and you can rotate whatever is not pinned down. Okay, so basically you can look at figure 830 and you can see sort of the effect that we're going for. So we are going to stretch his arm out. Both arms. And then we're going to stretch his legs out too. And I guess he did end up putting pins on his ankles. So obviously you still want to keep it semi-natural, but this is reminding me of Elasti-Woman. Okay, once you're happy with that, you can click the check mark, and if you need to go back and edit it, it's right here as a smart filter. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with our text layer. We're going to create a smart object out of it. And after you do that, it's no longer editable as text. So just keep that in mind. And then you're going to go up to Edit and Puppet Warp. And we're going to do the same thing with our letters. So we're going to kind of make them follow the curvature of his legs. So if you put a pin at the bottom of each letter and the top, and then you drag the top one up, that's how you're going to achieve that effect. So just go along all your letters and you can make it kind of fit the curvature that his legs have. On the U, it has 2 pins at the bottom and 2 pins at the top. So when you do this one, you're probably going to want to shift click and move both of them up at the same time. Same thing with the M. You're going to put 3 anchors along the bottom and then 2 along the top, and then you can shift click both of them. He actually has them at different heights, so oops. If you want to do one side higher than the other, that's fine. So I don't know, it's an interesting effect, I guess. You may not want to use it all the time, but it's kind of fun. Okay, so you can go ahead and save that as a JPEG. And then the last thing we're going to do is this jumper. And sometimes you have an image that is landscape and you want to change it to portrait or vice versa. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing here, playing with the scale of the image and also creating a square image out of it. Okay, so we're going to double click the background item in the layers panel and just click, we're going to name it jumper. Click OK. So that unlocks our background layer. And we're going to switch this image from horizontal to vertical. So we're going to go up to image, canvas size, turn off the relative checkbox, and set the height value to pixels. So our height, width's going to stay the same. Our height is going to go up to 1440 to match the width. So we're making our canvas behind the image square. And you're going to see this checkered pattern. This is just transparent empty space. And then you're going to go up to edit, content aware scale. And you're going to scale the image as tall as it will go. And because it's on content aware, it's going to be aware of what's in the image. So it kind of knows that she is not something we want to stretch much. Okay, so if you do it a few times, it'll sort of get the hang of it. Oops. I think there's a new setting. Protect. Let's see what it does if we do that. Protect skin tones. Yeah. So you're going to move that all the way up. And click the little skin tone button. So if you go back to where it's original, then click the little protect skin tone button. Then it's going to realize that she's probably a human and you don't want to stretch her, but you can stretch the background. Okay, now you're going to drag the top handle down in the corner until the thighs return to their original dimensions. So if you think her thighs are looking too tall here, we can go about there. And then you can do the content aware scale again. Protecting skin tones again. And you can go back over to the side. So now you can see it's not stretching her as much. She's looking better. So this is technically a destructive modification, so you would want to save the original before you did this, but now it's looking a bit better. And so you would just keep going with this, like you can stretch it vertically and then you can scale it down. And then you can stretch it vertically. And each time you do this, Photoshop's learning more about the subject that you have and how you want to stretch it. Woo! Okay, so I'm going to go back into this edit content aware scale again. And I'm going to attempt it again and see how we go this next time. Yeah, this time it's going a lot better. So you just kind of have to play with it and trick Photoshop into scaling the right thing. That looks a lot better this time. So you can see the two images at the end. If you had just done free transform on this, it would have looked really bad. But obviously I have some things to like clean up in the clouds up here, but other than that, she looks pretty good. So save all three of these as a JPEG and then you can turn them in for today.